Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Hockey Journey Podcast, episode number 133, the Dan Woog Hockey Journey, presented to you by onlinehockeytraining.com. I'm your host, Coach Lance Pedlick. If you're new here, please make sure you subscribe so you won't miss out on any future episodes. Before we take a trip down memory lane, visit with Dan Woog, son of the late, great hockey legend Doug Woog, my coach at the University of Minnesota, and begin this conversation. If you want to learn more about me, my hockey experiences, what I know, and most importantly, how I've been helping hockey players get really good with a stick and puck, just head on over to onlinehockeytraining.com, that's onlinehockeytraining.com, and gain instant access to my 10-part video series where I'll show you everything. Consider it my gift to you. Lastly, if you live in Minnesota or are visiting the state of hockey sometime soon and want to schedule an in-person off-ice stick skills lesson, I'd love to have the opportunity to show you my little world. Go to sweethockeycoach.com, that's sweethockeycoach.com, and watch the video on the homepage for instructions. Thanks, and I look forward to working with you sometime soon. I'm super excited to have my next guest, Dan Woog, on the Hockey Journey Podcast. He grew up in the state of hockey and carved out an impressive career, eventually earning a college roster spot at the University of Minnesota, and we're going to find out how he did it. If you think the road he had to travel was easy, well, if almost dying in a rock slide near his South St. Paul home was part of the plan, being told he'd never walk again, and if he did, it would be with a limp, I want to see how he climbed out of that challenging experience and realized his hockey dream. Dan's hockey journey is part one of the story. Being the son of one of the most influential, iconic hockey individuals Minnesota has ever produced, my coach, is part two of the story. So let's not waste another moment. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming Dan Woog to the show. Dan, welcome to the Hockey Journey Podcast.
Hey, Lance. Great to be with you. And as we all have and grew up in South St. Paul too, you usually have a nickname. So Pitt probably works well for you. And I'll explain how mine came about when we get into it.
Okay, awesome. Well, this, I did a episode with another really passionate hockey person, Winnie Brote, and you had texted me after you listened to it, and we had talked before about maybe coming on the show and, doing something in honor of your dad, and you weren't ready back then, but you texted me after you heard that episode and said you were ready. So I appreciate you taking the time. Those were some of my most memorable hockey experiences across the whole gamut. My years at Minnesota and your dad and the rest of that coaching staff, where it was exactly what I needed to help me continue on a path that I had hoped would last more than a couple years after I graduated from college. So how I like to start all the shows where I'm interviewing someone is I'd like you to rewind the tape. Let's take a moment and look in the rearview mirror. Go back to the beginning. Where'd you grow up? What was your childhood like? We know your parents, but you're going to talk a little more about that. Your brothers and sisters, friends, your introduction to hockey and other sports. Basically, tell the listeners in a nutshell what the heck it was like growing up Dan Woog.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I know my dad absolutely loved you and loved coaching you. I got to say that first and foremost. And the kind of guy you are and the effort you put in, and just absolute team player, and never afraid, never shied away from blocking a shot either, or putting a big hit on somebody. That was entertaining for a lot of folks. And I was there to watch a lot of those games growing up. So we appreciate that. And I love listening to your podcast. I do when I'm cutting the grass, I'm going to meetings. It's really great. I'm a little bit of a hockey junkie too. But growing up in South St. Paul, really, people say, where are you from? I said, well, I live in Egan, but I'm from South St. Paul. That's kind of how I approach it, because it's hard to take the South St. Paul out of you. And that was how Dad was, obviously, as well. But life was pretty simple, as you can imagine, and many folks go through. We didn't have a whole lot of money. Dad was a teacher and educator, and Mom did some flying as a flight attendant for Honeywell in these smaller jets. And, still to this day, never been out of the country. but
What?
that doesn't mean we don't enjoy life, and the simple things are really important. And we're going to get to those with my amazing bride. But yeah, no, that's what it was. And, you just learn that, time spent, you're outside all the time. Obviously, it was pre cell phones, as we all know. And, I know, we were in the garage shooting pucks. Sometimes I was the goalie for my brother, and I took a black eye here or there. But now things have changed quite a bit, and as you are such a influencer on so many too, with the Sweet Hands hockey tools, we use those in the garage. My son Jake and my daughters too. But I mean, the ability to increase their skill levels by something that looks real simple, but has been great. So we did that growing up as well. In the early years, really, I suppose I was on the ice when I was 3 or 4 years old, and then even for a few years there, I was probably one of the best ankle skaters you've seen. Weak ankles, skinny little runt. I suppose the $20 skates didn't have much support those days either, right? But that, again, we just did it. It wasn't thinking too far ahead. Around that early age, might age. Actually, I came up. My own nickname came out of nowhere. My mother's dad, Grandpa Bernie, would see me shoot the puck, fall down, go boom, and from there on out, he always called me, and my family and my buddies always called me Boomer. So
From that moment, wow.
Yeah. And I'm sure you heard about it years ago, but you're right. When you mentioned, my hockey journey, and I hear about a lot of ones that went for a lot of years, and mine almost ended at age 8. It was very traumatic and severe. Basically in South St. Paul, we're not far from the river. The stockyards was a big deal growing up and so forth. But we had, there's a lot of land and hillsides and so forth around us. At that time, we didn't have any neighbors where my mom and dad's place was, but we just wander the hillsides. We just stay busy outside, right? And we all did that. And then been there to the same place a number of times. There's a hillside with a little overhang, and a buddy of mine, Steve Platz, and I would go down there numerous times, and he was skinnier and smaller than me. But it basically started when I saw a few rocks, kind of pebbles come over the top, and like, boy, somebody's throwing things at me and at us. And so I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to outsmart everybody. I'm going to stick underneath this overhang in this hill and make sure I don't get hit with a rock. Well, the big one collapsed on me. Thankfully, Steve, my buddy Steve, bolted out, and this was January. So actually, I don't know why we were there in January, but there was some snow on the ground, but it wasn't heavy snow, and so I got stuck underneath this rock, and it was covered, and obviously a little shock. So there's maybe a few little points I don't recall, but all I remember is somehow this skinny little guy, I don't know where he got the adrenaline and the superpower to pull this big rock that covered me, not just part of me, but covered me. And he got it off me somehow. It's like a sandstone rock deal. And so that ended up, we find out he tried to first, he dragged me away from the hillside. And then from there, I tried to stand up, and I felt something in my midsection area, and I couldn't get up. And I put my hand on my hip, and I had some blood on my hand. So we immediately had him run across the street, call 911 and so forth. And, and a lot of things happened after that. Went to the hospital, but he literally saved my life and allowed me to have a journey, quite frankly, like so many people. But you're right. The doctors did say, you're going to recover, but you're probably not going to walk without a limp anyway the rest of your life. And again, the nice part is we just kept pushing and pushing, and the rest of the story kind of proves that, we beat that prognostication, and couldn't have done it without my mother sitting by the bedside too, with that support, and and that's what family does.
So what after the injury, what was your recovery time? Did you have to have surgery? And then talk a little bit about what the next few months, or I didn't even know how long the recovery was.
Yeah, basically it was just, I think from the January timeframe till the end of, till the fall. I was back on the ice. So I missed the second half of one of my squirt seasons there. And, you're in the wheelchair because you can't, put pressure on anything really. And then work your way up to the crutches. And, then eventually, you start thinking you're having fun with them for a little while until it gets old,
Yeah.
when your buddies want to borrow them, right? But, and one of the, actually, Pitt, the big memory too I had really was Herb Brooks dropped off a USA jersey, right? This was after the 1980 Olympics. And again, he had come across my dad at some point in time there too, obviously. And he gave me his number 3 jersey, which was my squirt jersey number, and which ironically was Dad's Gopher hockey jersey number when he played at the U, and it said Boomer on the back. And so that was very thoughtful, nice. I still have that to this day. It's starting to discolor a little bit, but it's something I'll always remember, along with the outgoing support from community and the grocery bags full of cards and well wishes. Well, that's what community does. They stand behind each other and family as well. And very appreciative for everybody that was along my recovery journey at that point.
So did you obviously made a full recovery?
Yep. Some days as we're getting into our 50s here now, sometimes I go, oh, there's a little pain in is that the pelvis area? Is that my hips? As I'm still active, right? As we get up and you feel something different every day, it feels like, but yeah, it was good. And I mean, I can't complain. I'm very, very lucky and fortunate. I understand that and realize that. And, and then going back to continuing with youth hockey, I was very fortunate. And in our town, it was, pretty much I'd play B hockey the first year of squirts or peewees, so forth. And then second year I'd play on the A level. And so just kind of earn your way, gets bigger, stronger, smarter, hopefully, and play with the next level. But I had a brother, Steve. So I got, Steve's a little over a year older. And so he was an 89 high school grad. I was a 90. Amy's 3.5 years older, my sister. So it's the 3 of us. And Steve was always the better player. He was always the A player the first year, the A player returning second year, captain. And, he went on to also have a really nice career. And we can talk about that later. I mean, with the scholarship and so forth, some of the things we went through the same path to get to the college ranks.
So after the injury, did you, because, I listen to a lot of stuff, read a lot of stuff, and sometimes when you have a really, really traumatic experience, you all of a sudden view the world through a different lens where you're grateful. Mm-hmm. Did something like that happen where every day? Okay.
Absolutely. And again, there's always times you kind of remind yourself. And when things that you feel are big now, you say, these aren't that big a deal. We've been through worse or tougher times, and try to keep a positive spin and outlook on things. And we're doing that right now with my wife's health, and again, trying to get her to a better place. And also got to think that everywhere you turn, there's somebody in worse shape than you are, been through something tougher. You can do it when you have a strong support group. Last 5 years with my brother and sister and others, and it's been with some other challenges. And now today, we've got a lot of friends that care about us. And I think that's also part of just being a good person, right? And treating people respectfully. And I remind my kids that all the time. And it's too important. Life's going to throw you curveballs, like you say. And you know what? Sooner you're going to hit one, you're going to run the bases. And, I feel pretty good about, I guess what came after that time. And again, yes, the outlook on life is, sometimes I just sit back and go, dang, I'm lucky. I get to go to the cabin. There's just certain things that, are a vacation, and, because we didn't have that growing up. And my kids, so I need to remind them once in a while too, their expectations. Sometimes simple things are very, very enjoyable. But again, there's times have changed. I don't, I know that, but very lucky. Yeah, very lucky, Pitt. And I appreciate that. And again, it kind of just added to the whole story.
Yeah, I I don't know. I watch some goofy stuff. I like weird facts. So the odds of getting struck by lightning, 1 in 500,000. Do you know what the odds of being a human being on this planet, what the odds of that are? 100, or not 100, 400 trillion to 1 being a human being here. So,
Really?
400 trillion to 1. I don't know what math guy got that calculation, but uh but yeah, it is a gift that we're here, and we
Yeah.
all have our box of challenges. They're just wrapped in different
Yep.
paper, and it's just times that you got to kind of pull up the bootstraps and dig in and just get through it. So my next
Absolutely.
question for you is, when let's see, let's start with this one. Did your dad coach you all the way up?
Actually, funny, he never coached us whatsoever. Neither one, myself or my brother, never once. And from everything I've
Wow.
heard from past coaches, everything I've heard is he didn't get involved. He didn't try to speak his mind. He didn't try to think he was smarter than anybody. He just let the volunteer coaches do the best job they could. And yeah, I thought that might come up. And but we did have a lot of great coaches. And again, part of for me too, learning about hockey too was watching it, and I watched a lot of it. And I remember Nesson, New England Sports Network.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so we had gotten at some point in time we had gotten one of those big giant dishes on the back put on the back hill, and that allowed us to get some of these channels. It was a New England Sports Network. So I was watching Boston Bruins play a lot. Cam Neely, Ray Bork, that group, and just obviously the the level of video is not what it is today, but it was still it's just something that had the passion in me, and I don't know if it came from dad or just myself, and I just loved doing it. I love watching. I love learning. That was my entertainment. Um, so that then we went on into high school. I don't know if that's what you're getting at, and moving up into the high school level, and again, junior. This is something I think about a lot with the players these days. Is we tend to have a big group of kids just move up together, right? Because we were 3 sport athletes, almost all of us in the 90s and late 80s. And so you end up playing, 14 seniors or so on a team. Thankfully, we made the state tournament twice. That was wonderful. But we, you just played. And I played JV hockey, 10th grade all year, 11th grade, suited up for some varsity, didn't play hardly at all. And then finally get your turn at the varsity level, and you just play. And it wasn't thinking ahead, like I think it seems like so many parents and kids do these days. Not that it's wrong, it's good to plan, but at the same time, it was just staying in the moment, staying present, loving what you're doing it with your buddies, spending as much time outside at the outdoor rinks as possible. And we did that a lot with dad, and that was great. Wintertime, growing up on the ice. And we did that with the high school when dad was coaching high school, and then also obviously ourselves with our buddies on the local pond. You look down, you see the goldfish swimming below you on the pond, and you start wondering, what am I doing out here? We literally had that. And I remember using we'd play keep away all the time. That was a big deal, right? And you'd use the fence that was sticking through the ice as an obstacle, for stick handling, or using it. It's almost like you as a defenseman coming around the net, having something to shield, right? So you don't get caught.
Yeah.
I mean, so anyway, just little things like that. I just remember doing the outdoor rinks growing up with dad, and whether it's Friday night or Saturday night, Steve and I would go up with dad to the South St. Paul High School. It had a rink outside, where the locker room was connected to the high school, and then you'd get dressed in there and you'd walk out, maybe 75, 100 feet out, and that's the outdoor rink. It had boards at that time. And so we'd go up there late at night, and with dad, first off, people had been skating all day. So he'd get out, he'd go back in, he had the keys to the tractor, and he'd get the tractor out, and he'd pull it out. We'd open up the boards for him so he'd get out onto the ice. And it's got the spinning wheel, the brush. That's what it was. And
Yeah.
so he'd go and he'd make that circle and keep pushing it out until it got to the boards. And so that would allow Steve and I, we'd be skating for a little while, but then we would grab a shovel. And then, when dad was done, he would grab a shovel too. We'd have to scoop the shovel, the snow over the boards, which, 3.5 feet high or whatever it was. So that
Yeah.
was a challenge for us when we were little turds. But, that's what it was. We'd lift that snow over, and all the way around the rink. Next thing is you go back in, the tractor's in, you go back in, you grab the big fire hose and help Dad pull it out of the building. It's probably about 300 feet to get it, to the other end of the rink. And then he'd get out there, run back in, turn it on, flood the rink, right? Just keep going back and forth, getting a nice layer of water on there. Walk yourself all the way back, just like a painter, right? Don't get stuck in the room. But those are memorable times. And, you get up the next day and you're like, hey, I want to get up to the ice rink.
Yeah.
And your buddies and people up there, I want to get up there when it's nice and smooth.
Yeah.
So pack a sandwich and some water for the day, and, someone will come get you if it's time to eat.
Yeah. When did you, have the inspiration where you're like, I want to try to play college hockey. I can play college hockey. When did that happen?
That's a great question. As you know, I grew up around it, 85, 86 when Dad started, he was the number 3 choice after Herb Brooks and Mike Surge, I believe it was. Paul Gill hired him, and, we'd skate outside when we were young. We'd skate inside on Sundays. They'd have open ice in the afternoons. That's where like Talifus and some of these other guys would be out there. Bobby Shire, he was running the JV program at that time, as you know. And so we'd get a chance to go out there and didn't think a lot. It's just you're in awe because you get to see this facility that's awesome, and I'd say awesome even versus today because the character of that building, the yellow wall behind the goalie, the light coming in on one end, the steep stairs, the balcony. You're out there and this was an awesome place. And I don't know what that rink was. What was it? About 200 by 90 or so? It was, I think, a little bit smaller than Olympic size, but a little bit bigger than normal.
There was way too much room for players for my taste, but
I hear you. So, again, I think one of the things I wasn't sure, I was called in my mind a late bloomer. And I know my dad would say that as well, where I wasn't very big. I was 5'9", 155 pounds or something like that. And I know you didn't probably have to be as big back then, but I needed time to develop. I needed strength and maturity, quite frankly. And so I ended up looking at the St. Paul Vulcans, which our local friend Stan Hubbard owned that. Right, he owned that. And Dad coached that back in the earlies, the Fighting Saints or St. Paul Vulcans. And so Stan Hubbard and their family had ran that, and the team was based out of Augsburg Arena. And at that time, it was different with this junior hockey, as the USHL. That was the place to be. That was really the only place in my mind that we knew of that could give you an opportunity to put in some extra time to grow and develop physically and mentally. So I was very grateful that opportunity came up. And now Stan's got a program, a tier 2 and tier 3. So there's USHL, tier 2, tier 3, and I'm sure you know more about it than I do. But he's got a New Mexico Ice Wolves group that is tier 2 and 3 down in Albuquerque. And actually last week, my stepson went down there for a week and spent time with them to get a flavor for it. And so it was awfully nice. He said, hey, have him come down for 2 weeks and see what it's about and see if he likes it. And my first thought was, wait a second, we're still in school here. He can't be gone for 2 weeks. But we worked out a week anyway. And but anyway, it was an awesome experience. We were national champions at the Vulcans with the 90-91 season, my first year out of high school. I remember beating a guy you would have known then, played for Compware, Brian Rolston.
Sure.
He was a big deal coming up, high draft pick. He had the super slap bomb, and we played for the Wild there for a while, and he could rip it. And so it was always fun to say we beat that high draft pick team because we played really hard as a team. We didn't have a lot of superstars, but we really competed hard as a team, and part of it was our coaching. We had Mike Gensel and Tommy Ward. They taught me a lot. They were awesome, great competitors. And
let's just talk about what those guys are doing. So Tom Ward, he's been running the Shattuck program, seems like forever. And then Gensel, that's Jake Gensel's dad. So
Correct.
you know that you were getting some quality coaching. So it's kind of nice when the stars all align, isn't it?
Very, very lucky, very fortunate. Even a high school coach, Russ Welch, Michigan State grad. And I think you probably, did you work up at the hockey camp at Quad Nippy?
The Kiwad Nippy? Yes. That was awesome. We're gonna go there now. Okay, yeah.
We had a lot of fun there.
Yeah, so what this
But
was, it was your dad had, when he
yeah,
was coaching with the Gophers, had this. I don't even know if he was doing it before that, but was coaching the Gophers and had a summer camp up in northern Minnesota. This really cool place, Quad Nippy. Is that what it is? Am I saying it right?
yeah, that was it. The first round of it was about 85, 86. After he got the head coach of the U, he said, I want to do a summer program where the kids are going to get 3-4 hours or so of ice a day, but then it's going to be a lot of outdoor activity. And it was just south of Ely, and we used the Babbitt Arena, which is a Buzzy Schneider grew up playing there.
And yeah, and we would you would staff it with players, and the Gophers.
Yep.
So we'd go up there and be up there for a week or two and get paid some money and get on the ice with the kids and do all the you had your cabin of kids that you had to look after, and then after we would go have a couple adult beverages, us
Yep.
that were and just we got to see your dad and a lot of his connections of different coaches that would come up there and help out. You just saw him in
Yep.
a different light, and it was just really cool to have those experiences. And I just have fond memories of that place.
Oh, it's wonderful. So simple, and you entertain yourself. You don't have a lot of extra things to entertain you there and out in the middle of nowhere. But so I guess I was just getting, because Wardo and Gensel, great coaches, as you mentioned. Very lucky to have them. Rusty Welch, again, never had my dad, and we never talked a lot of hockey. I'm sure people figured we would all the time. But he just thought it was a good idea too for me to try to grow up, get stronger, and give the junior hockey route a try. Still took some classes, so I wasn't going to drop out of school or anything like that. But there's long bus rides and things like that. You get to meet people. We had groups from Kennedy. Trying to think, was that Tartan, Salsville? Anyway, because it was a different deal where they basically protected guys' first dibs on guys in a set of maybe 6 or 7 different teams, and the Vulcans would have like first dibs on those guys, and that's how it was set up way back when. But it was great trips. I remember one story that you might like. We were playing down in North Iowa at Mason City, and so I was playing with a buddy of mine that I grew up in high school. His name was Dave Larson. His dad, Bruce Larson, or Book Larson, is his nickname because he's from Southpaw. You got to have a nickname. But Book and my dad were line mates in high school and then also for the University of Minnesota. So it was a pretty neat deal that the Sons, we played together growing up, including junior hockey. And there was a scuffle, a little fight that kind of broke out in the second period. And we were up 5-2. Myself, Larson, Kurt Lynn, all 3 of us, we ended up getting kicked out of that game in the second period. So we just had to get our stuff off. We showered up, cleaned up, and went out for the rest of the game. Well, as luck would have it, we lost 6-5 in overtime. Oh. And Gensel was pissed. And he was showing it. He said, guys that get to the locker room start undressing. He yells, only take off your skates, boys. Keep everything else on.
Okay, here we go.
Well, our line had already showed, we'd already got undressed, we're cleaned up. We're kind of laughing inside because everyone else had to walk out to the bus fully dressed and ride back the 2.5 hours or 3 hours back home. But that was probably, a learning lesson where at 1:30 in the morning, our practice was really good. It was crisp. It was intense. So that was a great experience. I look back on some of those things and so after that, went into the second year and so forth and didn't get a scholarship offer. Had some places I was looking at, Pitt, which, I got notification from Brown University, and quite frankly, I didn't think I was smart enough to go there. Great school. Looked at, River Falls, at St. Thomas, looked at that a little bit, but I don't know, somehow it came up where, what, I think I'm going to go walk on at the U. And Bobby Shire was running that program, the JV at the time, I believe. And again, I just kind of grew up around it and didn't think a whole lot more to it. Let's go show up and play. And then after that first year, it was going to be disbanded, right? But during the first year, it was 92, 93. I actually got to play the second game of the first series, which was against North Dakota, which, get into the fire right away, right?
Yeah.
And, you guys got Greg Johnson and a buddy of mine now, Kevin McKinnon was first line left winger there. And you're thinking, boy, coach must have a little confidence in us to put us out there. I mean, we did end up getting one of the goals later in the game, but you watch that, and I still watch some of that. Like I mentioned, I've got video of some of those games, and the amount of clutching, grabbing, interference that went on was incredible.
Yeah,
So I don't.
I like that. I gotta say this one, just because you walk on there. Boomer, the late bloomer. It's got a nice little catch to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Well, congratulations on the championship. I mean, it's any level. When you can win a championship, that is amazing. So hats off to you there. And I always tell kids, like when I was coaching for 17 years, that, you guys have these big dreams that you want to play college hockey, junior hockey, professionally, people are watching. You don't know when they're watching. And when you win a championship, and you're part of it, and you said you didn't have the superstars, you just were a bunch of guys that worked well together, were well coached, that those team, colleges, junior teams, they want winners. They want to know kids that have won championships, because I'm around kids every day, pretty much teaching them hockey stuff. I can't teach them how to win an overtime game, triple overtime game. So those experiences and winning a championship are invaluable. So you got your opportunity, that to go there, but it wasn't handed to you. We're going to call you Rudy for right now. But you go there. Was there any pressure, like when he started playing, that he's the only reason he's playing is because his dad's the coach? Did you feel that at all, or do you felt that you earned it? You did you went on and you quietly, he wasn't even your dad, he was just your coach?
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting dynamic. It's I thought throughout the whole 4 to 5 years, handling it, I think Dad handled it very well. He might have had as much pressure on him as I did on myself. It was, for one thing, like Steve, my brother. Well, he played on a 17 team. They went overseas somewhere. I mean, he was more of the player. Well, he ended up doing a year at Vulcans too, and then got a scholarship, almost a full ride each year to Northern Michigan. Well, he still has the one leg up on all of us with that national championship ring from '91, that 8-7 triple overtime game at St. Paul against Boston U. So he's got that ring. He doesn't flaunt it whatsoever, but he's got that. But I mean, it's hard to say you hear it enough that you know that people say things like that. I think pretty much ignore it and you just go do your business. For me, it was a little different too, because every day when you're a fourth liner, right, and you're just fighting and competing every single day and working your tail off, and walk out of practice exhausted because it's a tryout for guys on that and the level of the spot I was in. It was a daily tryout, and you just hope that you did enough that you make that Wednesday after practice list that you're traveling Thursday to Colorado College or Denver, Duluth or Wisconsin, wherever it is. And it was stressful. I would be lying if I say I wish I was a better player. Otherwise, because I think I could have taken in a few more things. I think you could have take that breath, relax a little bit, see what's going on. Soak up the crowd, soak up more events on campus, things like that. And it just wasn't the position I was in to be able to do that. And I'm sure also there's people and some of the players that would have a hard time getting close to me. Quite honestly, I was pretty much quiet and just I didn't want attention. I didn't ask for it. I didn't wasn't one of those kind of guys in a guys getting together crowd, anything like that. And but I like I said, I also if someone, and I was with the buddies out, the hockey guys, and someone said, that Coach Woog, he's an ass,
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, I don't mind. You guys can say it. That doesn't bother me. I know how to separate, the player coach from the dad situation. So I have no problem with that whatsoever. I understood it. I understood my spot. I understood the kind of player that I was going to need to be. I was going to need to be a grinder, put the effort in, play intelligent. And that's what I'll tell kids all the time when coaching them. I said, you know what, if you have some hockey IQ and you have anticipation for the game of hockey, and I think you learn a lot of that from watching it, you don't have to be the fastest guy. You don't have to be the biggest guy. But if you've got that intelligence, which hopefully I had, that helped me compete, because I wasn't going to blast too many shots by anybody. I wasn't going to run over many guys. I'd run into somebody and they'd put me down to the ground. But you know what? I did my job. I got in front of them. Right. So I think I disrupted the play. I didn't always have to get the puck out of it, but I think that was one of the things I do laugh about at Pitt when it was during my years there too, is if there was a little stuff after the whistle, which you really thrived on too, if there was stuff after the whistle, I'm looking for their best player, right?
Yeah.
And again, fourth line, maybe their first line guy got out there. My job and my brain is thinking, you know what? I got to shift in. I'm a fourth liner. If I can take one of their best players off the ice for at least 2 minutes, that's a win for my team.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But, I don't know. I loved, blocking shots on the penalty kill. I got to kill penalties quite a bit too at times. And face off. And, when you win face off, coach has some confidence in you, right? What situations you can play in, right? And you see that. You see right now, Jackson Nelson, he takes a ton of faceoffs. Honestly, I wish he could win more of them even. He might be like 52% or whatever it is. But it was an awesome experience, as much as it was stressful for me particularly, and maybe my mom. I don't know. I've never really asked her. It was a dream come true, that one that I never really dreamt about, because I didn't think I was good enough to play, quite frankly. And, I've been around there a lot of years and trying to, as a youth, go down the locker room and trying to see what it would take from Harry Broadfoot to get a stick out of him so I could bring it to practice, cut it off. Except for if it was Steve Orr's stick, I probably wouldn't even have to cut it off.
So, great messaging. And I think that there's a lot of parallels to both of our careers. Took me a while to get into the lineup at the University of Minnesota, and then I became an everyday player. Then I turned pro, everyday player, and then all of a sudden I'm not an everyday player, in and out of the lineup. And so I think that experience of you saying that I wish I could have taken a breath and took in the crowd and all that stuff. I think that's the majority of a hockey player's experience, is that you're just never comfortable, especially as you climb up. When you get out of your high school, you're one of the better players on the team, but you get to college, now you're with everyone's best player of the team, and how do you fit in there, and how do you get perseverance. That's awesome. And I think the other important message here, Dan, is that I think so many people think that you got to be at the Connor McDavid level. That's the ones that make it to college and to the NHL. It's not. I was never the most skilled, not even close, on any of the teams that I played on, and I had a 12-year professional career. Who would have thunk it? But you work with the assets that you have, and like you said, you don't have to be the fastest, you don't have to be the smartest or most skilled, but if you can work within the parameters to be a positive attribute for a team. They're looking for players like that have that heart and tenacity. Those are the ones that are the captains eventually.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I kind of joke about it. It's kind of like, remember the Leroy Horde story? If you need 3 yards, I'll get you 1, or something like that.
Okay, no, I don't.
Right? Well, it's kind of the football. He was never going to get you an 8-yard run. Leroy Horde with the Vikings. He's gonna, he's going to get you. You need 1, he gets you 3. You need 10, he's going to get you 3 yard. It's that kind of thing. And I feel like that was part of my college career stats. And I took a lot of pride, and it doesn't usually show up in the plus minus kind of thing until you get into higher levels. And I mean, I look and, see these guys again, whether it's Bedards or Coolies and these guys. And I mean, you look down there and they're minus 17, minus 23. They're incredible players. And again, they get a lot of points in the power play, right? And that's, same thing in college too. But I took a lot of pride in trying to be a positive player. Again, knowing my role. Fourth line, you can't get scored on, right? You try to pitch in when you can, sometimes be a third line guy once in a while. But I kind of added up and I said, if you give it 4 years, you get about 20 goals and 60 assists. I said, if I could give you 5 goals probably each year, Pitt, but you ask for 7 or 9, I ain't going to get it for you. And I'll get about 20 assists for you, but that's about it, point every other game. And that's just who I was and the type of player I was. And I think I overachieved, quite frankly, just because I never even thought I would reach that level. But again, I do have some highlights, and the ones going back to that first game was the wooden stairs, as you well know, just the clunking of the skates as you're walking up that as a team, right? It's like a marching army, and you're hearing that, and it just stays in you because you just hear it going up, and that was such an amazing, memory for me. And I mean, I got to play with guys like Bonin and Treble and Larson, things like that. But one of my obviously highlights of my college days was my freshman year. Which was really my second year because I redshirted. I took 23 games to score my first goal. And the good news was, it was
hold on. Just
Yep.
to, so you're going to feel better about yourself. I didn't score a goal my whole first year. It took me my second year to get my first goal. So, you did good, kid.
Thanks. Lucky the season was long enough here. First goal is a goal for overtime game winner against Duluth at Mariucci, which what an amazing thing when, crowds were big back then, right? Consistently big, 10,000 people. And I can still picture it again, seeing it happen and, intercepting a puck, getting it to Checo. He gives the Feeblecorn saucers it as I'm going to the net, and I flip it far side, upper left. I mean, I'll never ever forget that. And just the sheer enthusiasm, excitement, and your teammates to have that for you, no matter if you're the coach's kid or not. That's always a big thing. I always want kids to say, hey, I want to be as excited for the assist or the goal my teammates get as much as I am for myself, right? There's so much, state tournaments, selfie sticks and all this celebrations, and that's just what it is these days. But it was you couldn't wait to celebrate with your teammates. So that was a monster thrill and just so exciting. And and it's also another feeling you feel like you're part of, contributing to the team, right? It is. It's not all about points. I watch, Erickson Eck and some of these guys. They should somehow get a point. These guys that stand in front of that, Corey Perry, for blocking the goalie's eyes. There should be something, besides a plus on a 5-on-5. But you know what I mean? I mean, there's little things in hockey that make such a huge difference that create goals that happen before the goals actually created, but or actually had. But the other real big highlight for me, Lance, was my junior year. That was the year with Brian Bonin was a Hobie Baker, and can't say enough about guys like Bonin and Crowley, and the attention that they had going into high. Obviously a lot of focus on them, and I think they handle themselves very good, and had some wonderful parents that also helped. But I had my first ever hat trick my junior year. I never got one in youth hockey, Pitt. I don't know about you.
Oh, really? I got them all the time.
Yeah. Well, and here's how ironic this thing was. My first ever, and it was on January 26th, which is my dad's birthday. So we're playing Northern Michigan at home, and they weren't that good that year. That was after my brother had graduated, and January 26th, which is Gretzky's birthday too. It ended up being a 7-0 game, but first hat trick ever. And how wonderful was this? I got things going through my head like, wow, what if I play tomorrow night and I do really well? I know I'm a team player, but man, I could maybe get like player of the week, and what am I? I'm a healthy scratch.
The next game?
I didn't even play the Saturday night game.
Thanks,
kiss any honor goodbye there. But again, I also understood my position. right? And I understood that we were mopping up on 7-0, 10-0 that weekend, and other guys deserve to play.
Yeah.
Other guys that put in the time, put in the practice, they deserve to play. So, yeah, it was amazing feelings, amazing experience. As much as, yes, it was stressful, but it was very focused. You had to get your studying done. You had to balance your life there, try to make sure you learn how to cook a little bit, and being so lucky and what a great place to play, as you know. I mean, the MSC in the old days and the broadcasts and Fox, and it's an awesome experience. I'm so happy to see your kids going through it. Even Don Lucia, when Tony was looking to where he was going to go to school, I sent a message to Coach Lucia, and I just kind of said, hey, I've been in the shoes before, in that relationship, and I wasn't scouted, I just walked on, but I just said, don't shy away from it. If you're thinking about shying away because it's your kid, don't do it. It's such an amazing opportunity and experience, and again, Tony held his own too. So just wanted to make sure you're out there supporting, whether it's Coach Lucia or Coach Moscow, and it's a big community, and Gopher Hockey and the alumni and the things that some of those guys do now, and Paulie Martin and Nick Angel as well, and we all got to keep it together as a one large group as well. But yeah, it's been an awesome ride, and it's not over. There's still a lot more things to do, and hopefully continue to help with things with youth at times. And I don't know. I'll let you see what you want to talk about next.
Yeah, well, I reflect back to me, like I was in my senior year. The hockey season was over, and I had a couple letters from a few schools, but no one had me come for a visit. So I felt like an orphan puppy or kitty. And then your dad and the rest of the coaching staff, someone saw something, and they saved me and gave me an unknown opportunity, and I guess it paid off. But you talk about your junior coaches with Genzel and Tom Ward. I mean, at the U, that staff was incredible as well. You got your dad, Doug Woog, and then Bill Butters, Dean Talafas, Paul Otsby, Jack Blatherwick, Bob Shire, who you talked about, and the trainers, Harry Broadfoot, and then John Hamry. It was just, it was a family. And I remember you being around the locker room on the weekends, and it was just one big family. It was really, really a great experience, and I'm just so grateful I had it.
Oh, it's awesome. And kind of funny, when you talk about the coaching and and then those days of recruiting, and I know my dad had that deal about him that people are saying, well, you're anti-Canadian, right? You're anti-Canadian, because he said, no, I'm not anti-Canadian. I'm pro-Minnesotan, right? The scholarship opportunities that was his big deal. And, again, maybe things could have been different. Obviously, you guys had that one pipe. The pipe was too big on the on one side there, and otherwise it would have been a wonderful trophy and an honor to have that championship. But it's kind of interesting too. Well, Dad, he always went on this annual fishing trip to Canada, so how could he be anti-Canadian?
Yeah. So was that fishing was his passion. What are some other things that he did when he was not at the rink coaching?
Yeah. Well, I know the old days, it was 8 hours a day at the rink for Miller Woog Hockey School. That was the hockey side still as we were growing up, and he put us, my brother and I, and the thing that also was wonderful is he put us in positions where we had to step up, even when we weren't comfortable, to lead groups. I think he was thinking well beyond any of us, in terms of what this could do for your personal development, right? And the cabin time though is really, he absolutely loved it. We got a cabin up in north side of Nisswa, Pequot Lakes, and that was his getaway. That was where he loved. He'd go up in putts, go rake the yard, do a little fishing. His dad had it. We've had it since 1934. Oh, wow. And basically Steve and I and Amy have taken everything over, and and share that, and we get along great as a family, so we're very lucky with that. So I laugh a little bit about the whole championships and winning the big one, and it kind of brought back a quick thought. We had a guy, a family friend that I think it was Dave Metzen, who was a big supporter of Gophers. He was a regent, and he said he brought this plaque to us, and it said, "You did win the big one." This is after Dad had passed away 4+ years ago, and he said, "Every person you ever met, you ever taught, you ever coached, you treated with dignity and respect. That, my friend, is winning the big one in parentheses in life." And I think we all want to win the trophy. We want to win a championship. We play for that. But I think Dad also had a bigger picture than just that part. But when it was over, like you said, it's time to, time to go focus on something else. You got to get a mental break. I think that was a little hard on him over times, especially in the late 90s when, you're 500 or barely above, and that's not good enough for Gopher hockey. And understand that. I think he understood it, and thankfully had the opportunity to then also not necessarily be at the rink every day, but also, with the broadcasts, his color commentary, I think people could relate to him, Pitt. I think people could relate to a normal, everyday blue collar guy. But I think the public related to him. He's never going to say no. We went down to Chatfield, Minnesota. You probably don't know where that is, but it's down south, and a fundraiser. Somebody asked him to come. Okay, it's not Edina, it's not Bloomington, it's not any hotbed, right? But they asked him, and he did it, and I went with him, and so he would take me along to some of those things. But that was his big thing, is fishing every end of May, June. Steve and I and Dad, I think it was 33 consecutive years. We made that trip. It was Eagle Lake, Ontario, and then it would end up being Lac Seul. We never missed one. Unbelievable. I mean, Not for illness, not for injury. We never missed one of those trips. And, as much as it was just peace and quiet on the lake. And, we're not like super talkers all the time. There's a lot of quiet time and peaceful time. And I think that's something we enjoyed by doing it. At the end of school season was there. It was a getaway. We had some other friends that would go, and he loved that type of scenario. And I know there was some period of time where I think Galpines and Nielsen's in this group, I think some of those guys for a while, he would go on a fishing trip with them or take them, and whatever the rules were, I don't know exactly. But I think that just shows the real side of you versus the coach side. And that's who he was, and I think growing up with, I don't know if you remember Jake and Wanda, his folks.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
They traveled with you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were lucky our family was so close to this. And I got to mention to you too is, I think back and say, boy, how lucky, again, have I been too? My family, our family, that Dad got these opportunities. People believed in him. He always lived in his hometown in South St. Paul through all these different years. South St. Paul High School coaching. He actually even they asked him to start a soccer program. He had no idea what soccer was about, but he kind of probably put it to terms with hockey and said, you support each other and you move. And well, in a couple of years, they were in a state tournament. Then he was at the St. Paul Vulcans locally, right? When he went with the 1984 Olympic team and coached with Lou Vero after doing the junior team, national team before that. But I mean, still can live at home. Gophers live at home. And I think to all these other coaches that have been, uprooting families, and especially when the kids are, middle-aged. I mean, when they're little, probably not as big a deal, right? But when they're, junior high or high school and you got to move your family, we were really lucky. Dad was a third pick, right? But we just felt so fortunate to have that, in our family, and very, very blessed and grateful to the University of Minnesota and all the people that were there along the way. And again, one of the things that you talk about outside the real on daily hockey is that renaming of the Wakota Arena to Doug Woog Arena.
Yeah, awesome.
That's probably in the top two of his, special recognitions type of situation that you don't ask for. The community was the ones that pushed for that, longtime community people, and that literally hit close to home. And he actually helped put some bricks and things into the original rink. But that was near and dear to his heart, because he's just old school that way. But it was crazy, the North Stars, he passed on that when Pierre Page was coaching and offered the assistant coach position to him. He turned it down. because he just loved the teaching and working with the amateurs and the sports there because he was always an educator. He was involved in teaching. I was trying to think geography, guidance counselor, things like that. So it was just an awesome life that we grew up very simple, but very lucky. And, with his side of things, I always remember, he telling us about when he was recruited. He was an all-state player in football too. Right. And, his hockey stuff's been talked about a lot, but he was all-state in football too. And he actually was invited to go for a visit at the University of Minnesota campus. So he went out there and went to the football. And I think the guy was named Judge Dixon or something, some massive guy. And he saw in the locker room right away. And he said he figured it out real quick. That was not the spot for him. So he'd walk across the street and sign on with the hockey team at Mariucci there. Williams Arena, I think it was at that time. But
yeah.
Good decision.
Well, I, just going back to not winning a championship, I couldn't get, when I was there, we couldn't get it done. But, I look at how important having kids graduate was. I was not a good student. I had to really, really work hard to, it took me 9 years to get my degree, but I got my degree. And I think that if you look at all the players that have went through there, that have gotten their degree, and I think the real proof in the pudding, and a testament to your dad and the rest of the coaching staff, just their commitment to just developing good human beings is, look at how many people that have went through that program that are now doing really cool stuff in the business world and, moving hockey in a positive direction. So, it was a ride, and, I'm just really grateful that I was able to have a few years with your dad.
Oh, well, and I love hearing the stories, and again, people after his passing, especially too. It's almost like anytime you talk to somebody new, there's another story, and usually a good one, and and it might have been the Mark Mazzolini, Frank Serratori story. Someone reminded me about that recently, and that was when Doug was coaching the St. Paul Vulcans at the time.
Okay,
that was around the early 70s, 75, somewhere in there, and Dad didn't know much about goaltending at all. He just stopped the puck, and that's why you hire Bobby Mason and Paul Osby, right? But during the junior game, the one time I was professionist, Mazzolini and Serratori, one of the two was in nets, and they were beating some team. It was pretty dominant. It was 6-0, 7-0, late in the second period. And all of a sudden, he hears the goalies chirping at each other, Mazzolini and Serratori, whoever was back and forth saying, hey, I'm going to get this shutout. So he found out they had a bet going on, that the two goalies, one goalie was playing, one wasn't, and who was going to get the first shutout. Well, once he heard about that, well, what did he do? Probably some unorthodox. He started pulling skaters off the ice on the shifts one by one. So 5-on-5, it started 5-on-4. Then when the other team still couldn't score, it's 5-on-3. Then it got to 5-on-2, and I think the other team finally scored when it's 5-on-2 or 5-on-1. And he just kind of smirks and looks down the bench like, I got you guys, And so that was a great story, and I love hearing about him. And I know some of the other things like helping Housley, when Housley switched him from to make a difference in his life, I think too in the long term, was switching him from center. Everybody wants to play center, right? He switched him to defense when he came onto the high school scene, and so he could be the quarterback. He could control the game more, and so he helped Phil negotiate that contract as an 18-year-old, out of high school right to the Sabres, and things that he felt good about, and the families were close, and again, trying to make an impact on others, and that's somehow, how do we give back, right? And just like you too, I'm sure it's to me, I've been trying to give back in other ways by doing play-by-play and commentary for the kids' teams growing up, the high school team, and because there's a lot of snowbirds and so forth, grandma and grandpas that are down south or whatever it may be, and this is something I enjoy. I enjoy analyzing the game. I get a kick out of that. I I don't have the time and energy to be a coach, but I love trying to help and bring it up to kids that rewatch the game. And, some of the things I see out there on the ice, I don't know who developed this breakout where you win a face-off and you throw it up off the glass, not the far side, not a face-off play, but you throw it up off the glass and you hope for a bounce.
Yeah.
I mean, some things just kind of baffle me.
Right.
But again, you keep your mouth shut because it's not you're not there every day. You're not doing all the work on a day by day. And when it really comes down to it, are they being good and respectful to the kids, giving them opportunities, let them earn opportunities. And, that's really, it seems like what it's all about is every day we go to the rink and my wife and I, and Danielle, and we'd say, you know what, people say, I hope they win today. We say, you know what, I hope they come out healthy, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And I listened to your Piper broadcast too, and, the Duke Piper and, so many others. And I've been through it myself, we just, as you grew up and you go to be a parent, the health is so important.
Yeah. Speaking of that, you got a family challenge right now going on with your wife.
Yeah.
Just kind of briefly talk about that. Maybe there's someone out there that'll listen and like, hey, I've heard of that, and talk a little bit about what's going on there.
Oh, I appreciate that. It's been a struggle, and again, this is just a different struggle and a hurdle we're gonna get over together. But my wife Danielle and I, we got married in September, and we have a blended family now, and we've got 6 kids. And so I've got 2 at the U right now, Ellie and Carlin, and Jake's a freshman, and then she's got Hudson, Haley, and Cullen. And to me, I love them all, and they're all my kids. She's an incredible person inside and out, amazing partner in life. And she's has a big job. She's on an executive level at Dairy Queen, and the HR runs that division. And really brought, when you talk about, I kind of think back about the team, and she's kind of the quarterback of that team, or the point guy on the power play, so to speak. But also bring culture. We hear about that so much, talked about culture, whether it's football or hockey or whatever it is. And she helped bring some of that to the Dairy Queen group about 5 years ago. And We Make Happy is all over inside the building. There's different phrases. It's all these positive things. And we're having to kind of keep reminding ourselves of some of these positive things as we're going through. Since July and August, we learned that there was some pressure building up in her lower pelvis area, and nobody knew what it was about. Hospitals don't know. You go in there in pain, and finally in January, we get a referral, say, hey, you should go check this out. It might be something what's called pelvic congestion syndrome. Hardly anybody knows about it. Seems like you have to go online and really research it, and it's out there. But we're up to 30 plus different doctors and medical people that we've been to, seen. She passed out on me once. I had to take her, call the ambulance. I caught her on the way down. It was 2:20 in the morning. She said, I don't feel good. And boom. And thankfully I was there to catch her and then lay her on the ground. But she's kind of limp and lifeless type. Her eyes are moving a little bit. And I just kept talking to her. It was a very, very scary moment. I mean, there's some bad things that go through your head at that point. And she's my rock. I'm her rock. And we've changed each other's life for the better, even though we've only been married since September. But it's been a situation where finally, they say, oh, we think we're going to do the surgery. So we do that in February. 4 days before that is when she passed out. And then we do the surgery, which what it basically was, there's veins that go kind of north and south on each side of your stomach, pretty much from the kidney down to the pelvis area and the ovary area, down there. And sometimes hard to talk about, but sometimes my medical terminology isn't great, even though I did take a 2-credit class at the U. But it's they learned that the blood wasn't flowing the right direction, it wasn't going back up, and so they blocked these off because the pooling was in the lower pelvis area, creating this tremendous pressure. They put 7 metal coils in each of those veins to stop it from going through there, and then blood is going to need to reroute. And we know it may take some time to get better. It might be 2-3 months, but in the meantime, there's been something, we can't tie it all together. We don't know if it was adrenaline glands that were out of whack. It was, oh boy, we've seen so many specialists in the Twin Cities here, and we're trying to get into the Mayo Clinic. And I know you know someone that we're really hoping they can help because this gal, Danielle, she was the healthiest of any of us by far. Work out every day, eat well, eat healthy. And now, she's now at the point she's been at this point for a couple months where she can't drive a car. She can't go to work. I can't leave for very long, or I have someone come over, or my sister. Her family's been wonderful. It's really hard to see, quite honestly. And we keep fighting for answers. As we thought we had two different directions to go last week. And unfortunately, we went to a cardiac electrophysiologist or something. I don't know. And sorry, but then it was we went down and got some tests done and put her up and down on a table and blow into bags and put all these electrodes all over, pour a little water on there, I guess, to shock her. And they said everything seems fine. Well, we know everything's not fine, but we just can't get to the bottom of it. We can't find the root cause. All we know is her daily life is just a fraction of what it used to be. And again, we're very thankful. We haven't heard the word cancer or anything like that, but we keep coming to a dead end. We were at an endocrinologist this week, and they said again, like every other doctor, we don't know what's going on really. We can't help you. Yeah. And it's deflating. It's debilitating for her. It changes all our lives. We got 6 kids we're trying to take care of too. But again, I know this is just our story, and it's our challenge, and we're going to keep supporting each other. But if anybody does have anybody in mind, you keep trying to say, hey, sometimes it's not always what you know. If somebody can help somebody, and that's really the first thing she would be, is to help others, and I'm a lot like that too. If I can help somebody, it makes you feel good, and especially when their lives have been changed and tipped upside down. So I appreciate you mentioning that. It has been a struggle, and we still don't know what the next steps are. It's really hard to get into Mayo. It's been 6 weeks. They've had all our paperwork, and just something's not getting through very quickly. And we truly feel that would be the best place. But if anybody has any thoughts, ideas, suggestions, we'll go any direction down any hole, to find this answer and to get her back on track. So, so in the meantime, just trying to keep busy and, trying to stay as focused as I can on my job and things like that too.
Well, I know all the people that are listening are going to be throwing you good vibes, hoping that you guys can get this puzzle solved.
Thank you. And it's like I said, for all of us, life is a balance, and you got to take care of family the best you can. And my work's been pretty good too, allowing me to work at home. And basically, some time ago, I got into the securities business, investment planning, helping individuals mainly with analyzing risks, needs, setting up plans, things like that. And it's nice to have that flexibility to be able to work from home at times. And it was always something I really enjoyed doing because I'm working with people, and I like doing numbers, so I'm lucky to have that flexibility, but we, everything else is kind of needling into that area too. And so again, thank you for that. And, we'll keep fighting because that's the only option you have.
Ain't that the truth?
You got it. We'll take a 5 and a 10 right now.
That's right. Gordie Howe hat trick. That's what it takes. Dan, thank you for taking the time and sharing your personal and family hockey journey. Congratulations on what you achieved as a player. And I really appreciate you sharing your father's contributions to the sport of hockey. Great stories, the growth of the game. Personally, he made me a better person, and that whole staff there was, the main reason that I was able to play past college. So thank you for taking the time, and then all the best to you and Danielle.
Thank you so much, and take care of your family, and I hope everyone else stays healthy too.
Yeah, say hi to your brother and sister. Haven't seen them in a while.
Sure will.
Yeah, no, say hi to the Woogers for me.
We're pretty close knit, and they're only about 5 miles apart here from us in Invergrove Heights, and it's kind of funny. Mom and Dad had bought the house over there, and they're all on the same street. But 4 blocks apart from each other. It's a turning street, so you can't see the houses when the leaves on the trees. But what a wonderful thing, especially as Dad's health was declining with the Parkinson's, and really have my brother's wife step up huge and take care of him in his last year of being out of memory care unit called the Moments down in Lakeville, and trying to make the last time with them the best possible and the most
Yeah.
comfortable possible. And so again, leaning on family, and we're always there for each other. So appreciate that. And if there's anything you ever need, please don't hesitate to reach out to me either.
Well, I appreciate that as well. Again, thanks so much for taking the time. I think everyone's going to love this story. And then best of luck. I hope you guys get some answers soon.
Thanks, buddy. Love that you're doing this, and you do a great job. And I really enjoy the variety of the people that you have on. And again, it just gives me something also to do while I'm doing other things at the same time. So whether it's at the gym yesterday or cutting the grass eventually here, it probably won't be too long the way things are going. Finally got some snow. So thanks, my friend. I appreciate it. You're the best, and appreciate and respect you so much.
Well, that concludes another episode of the Hockey Journey podcast. I can't thank you enough for stopping by and listening. I hope you enjoyed hearing the hockey journey of Dan Woog, son of one of the greatest hockey influencers to ever come out of the state of hockey. That was an awesome conversation. I continue to give gratitude to Doug Woog, the rest of the coaching and academic support staff, and the University of Minnesota for the opportunity and guidance they all provided me. And believe me, I needed some direction back then. Thank you. Lastly, if you think there's someone in your circle of family and friends that might like this episode as well, please share it with just one person. It will really help me in growing this hockey community. Again, I appreciate you being here. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, or submit a review. I hope to see you back here soon, and do me a favor, make someone close to you smile today. All the best, my friends.